Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today I got a fun, exciting, and interesting episode for you guys this evening, because just earlier today, Rich Whitehouse released Big Instinct, his brand new Killer Instinct and Killer Instinct 2 emulator based on the Midway arcade platforms. If you remember Killer Instinct from back in the arcades, that's the game they told you was running on Ultra 64 hardware, and while that was not true whatsoever, it was one of the marketing gimmicks Midway and Nintendo came up with. And while these games definitely run in MAME, Rich thought that there was a better way to do it with the MIPS recompiler, so it is in beta as of today. You do need to be a Patreon member to grab the build, but that's what I'm playing on. We're going to review it and take a look at it. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But I'm starting off with Killer Instinct 2 because honestly, of the two games, it definitely is my preferred. I have never been great at Killer Instinct, but honestly, I find the first game a little bit too cheap and difficult. I struggle to get anywhere in it, versus Killer Instinct 2, I always have a good time. And obviously this got ported over to the Nintendo 64, but it is an inferior port compared to the Midway arcade board original. So having a custom emulator built just for these two games is going to be awesome, but I'm sure a lot of the technology underlying Big Instinct is going to be used by Rich in future endeavors. And if his name doesn't sound familiar, maybe you played a previous emulator he worked on, Big PMU, which emulates both the Atari Jaguar and the Atari Jaguar CD so much better than we've ever had before. And honestly, in my first playthroughs of this kind of checking it out, I am highly impressed. Now, I never had any complaints about the MAME emulation whatsoever, and I'm not going to get into the deep technicalities on the MIPS architecture and how it is being interpreted here. Just know that this is definitely an impressive feat and a very technological leap as far as the emulation of this hardware is concerned. And it's not just that it has that MIPS chip on board, it also of course has the video hardware to be able to actually draw an image. But the one thing I can say right off the top, I'm playing this with my TR Octopus Fight Stick, and as far as the responsiveness is concerned, it feels absolutely perfect. I feel absolutely no latency in the inputs whatsoever, so if you pull off a move or a combo or you don't pull it off, it seems to be down to your timing on the frame input window and not any sort of lag in the emulation. But then again, I am not an expert player at Killer Instinct or Killer Instinct 2 in any manner of the word, so I'm sure people that really love this game will come out with more feedback. And again, this is just the first released in beta for Patreon members, but I knew you guys would be interested in it, so I definitely wanted to take a look at it today, because honestly, for some strange reason, happily so, in 2025, emulation improvements are just blowing up. Tomorrow I'll have a video on the new version of Flycast. We have a brand new Sega Saturn emulator out there. We have so many different FPGA cores, and now we even have a custom Killer Instinct emulator. And you'll see here after the matches, you do get these video sequences, things that really weren't available on the Nintendo 64. Now, if you do want to use this emulator, you're going to have to take the CHD files from MAME as well as the zips and put them in the same folder as a tool included with the emulation. You're going to go ahead and double click on the executable, a DOS prompt will show up, and it'll basically convert the file format over to what Big Instinct emulation actually wants to use. It worked the first time, but you do have to pick the right file, so definitely be aware of that. You're just not going to be loading up the CHD. But short of that, getting this thing running was absolutely a breeze, and I will say Rich Whitehouse has one of the best UIs as far as an emulation is concerned. Whether it's Big PMU or Big Instinct, it absolutely makes sense. There's a ton of different options. I'm going to show you a couple in just a moment, because I want you to understand how to get into the test menu. Because don't forget, unlike a console game, these are arcade games, and all of the options are going to be dictated in the test menu. It's not like you hit start and you either hit start game or hit options like a console release. But you'll see here, absolutely get my ass handed to me, and that's just what happens in Killer Instinct when I play. It is not an easy game whatsoever, but as far as the graphics are concerned here as well, I really couldn't find any sort of visual glitches in Killer Instinct 2. It just looks like the game that I remember from arcades. Now, I don't own an original arcade board for this one because I am not a huge fan. I appreciate what Killer Instinct does, but I never felt the need to actually add one to my collection. But if you love this game more than any other fighting game and you play the arcade version a ton, leave me a comment down below and you tell me what you think of the visual appearance. Next, we're going to move into the soundtrack sample for Killer Instinct 2, and then after that, we'll jump into the original Killer Instinct and talk about the test menus. But go ahead and listen, and you tell me if this sounds accurate or not, and I'll be right back. I mean, that sounds good to me, but I would honestly admit that Midway never had the best sound hardware as far as clarity is concerned. There's a slight bit of muffled audio in the overall soundtrack, but that's what I remember the original arcade board sounding like, and that's what MAME sounds like as well. Because Midway had incredible games, they had great hardware, but for some reason on the sound front, I always felt like their hardware was a little bit deficient compared to everyone else. And don't get me wrong, I love a lot of their games, it's just one of those things. I've always thought that they could have done a little bit better in the audio hardware department. Now, as far as options are concerned, this emulator is absolutely comprehensive. You can run it in windowed mode, you can run it in full screen, you can play around with all of the different resolutions. You're going to have a ton of different settings to get involved with here, and you'll see at the bottom, which we'll go into a little bit deeper, you're going to see dip switches. This is going to be very important if you're going to use this emulator, so I want to go over it in a specific section in just a moment. But as far as the rest of the settings are concerned, there's nothing in here that you would be missing. It's got every single setting listed. You have all these different video options, a lot of them brought over from BigPMU, and of course you're going to be able to bind the controls however you want to, because I use that TR Octopus Fight Stick as basically an Xbox controller on my PC. So you're going to go ahead and see here, you're going to have those bindings for the buttons, so if you want to change anything around you can, and you can even enable a service key if you want to, which can be important for stuff like an actual arcade board. Let's move into the original Killer Instinct here to take a look at that, and honestly it's the exact same story as Killer Instinct 2. It looks, sounds, and plays exactly like I would expect it to, but this is one where honestly I am just not very good at the game. I feel like Killer Instinct, the original at least, always had a little bit of a difficulty challenge, and even though you will see me move around as far as the test menu is concerned to make the game easier, I still have a pretty hard time of it. But tell me down below, Killer Instinct or Killer Instinct 2, which is your preferred game? I would be curious. For me, it's Killer Instinct 2 all day long. Killer Instinct, the original, had some fun ideas, but it just never 100% clicked for me, and you'll see just how quickly you can lose a match here with Spinal. Something about this game, you put your credits in, you hit start, and suddenly 30 seconds later, the machine is asking you for new money. And this is just at the normal difficulty level as well. I've always felt like the AI was just a little bit too predictive and kind of just knew exactly what it was to do to absolutely destroy you. But honestly, Midway always had that difficulty in their arcade games, and games like NBA Jam had such hard rubber banding that you basically couldn't sink a shot whatsoever if you were playing too well. But if you do find these games a little bit too difficult, you want to change the options around, you're going to have to go back out to the UI menu, and you're going to have to go to the actual settings, which you're going to do right here. So pay attention, that way you can articulate them as well. If we go into systems and down to settings, you're going to first have to go into the dip switch menu. From here, you're going to have blood levels, attract music sound, ending moves, everything like that. But you're going to see at the bottom, there is a test mode. 0 is going to be the test dip switch off, 1 is going to be the test dip switch on. If you want to change the difficulty or anything else, switch it to 1 and then go ahead and reload the game, and you'll end up in this menu. From here, go to game adjustments, and you can change the computer difficulty to whatever you want. But if you hit return to main menu, it's just going to give you a warning that the dip switch for test is still on. You'll have to go back out to the menu and turn dip switch for the test from 1 to 0 and then reload the game one more time, and those changes will persist. And it's one of those things, if you're not used to arcade boards and you don't use MAME, that might trip you up, so I wanted to explain it. But this video is not a tutorial. If you want an in-depth tutorial on BigInstinct, leave me a comment down below and maybe I'll make it for you guys next week. But it's time for the next soundtrack sample, because of course we have two different games that run in the emulator, so we have two different soundtrack samples. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, and again, you tell me if it sounds correct, and I'll be right back with more. Now that sounds exactly like I expected to, and that's because it is absolutely muffled, and that is just the Midway sound. I don't know what it was about the way they developed games that you always had that kind of, it felt like it was down a hallway, you were listening to the music to vibe to it. But it does sound accurate, and just like Killer Instinct 2, really can't find anything here in the graphics, in the control inputs, and any of the frame timings that make me think that it's doing anything wrong. But again, I can't stress enough, I am not a Killer Instinct expert. There's a couple extra pixels at the left hand side of the screen every once in a while, but that shows up on MAME as well. It's one of those things. A lot of these games would overdraw ever so slightly every once in a while because some of this imagery would be behind the bezel on a CRT monitor in arcades or at your home. So it really is hard to say when you're rendering every single pixel and you can see it, whether that's an emulation issue or whether it's something that actually would be there on real hardware if you had the monitor bezel off. Because think of an arcade cabinet, pretty much every single time that monitor's in there, there is a bezel that covers up at least a tiny portion of it. But we'll move into one more character and close the video out saying that Big Instinct emulation is absolutely awesome. If you love Killer Instinct, you're going to absolutely love this thing, and if you don't, I definitely still recommend you check it out, but do be aware it is Patreon only right now, and if you want to leave a comment down below and tell me that doesn't technically count as out, because people seem to like to do that recently, I can't stress enough, if you can download something and play it, it is out, and if you don't want to spend the cash, I'm sure this will come out for free soon, but honestly, for 10 bucks, it really is a very small investment into something that is awesome, because Rich has always given us the emulation goods. But short of that, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think, and don't forget to stop back tomorrow because I got some big updates and Dreamcast emulation news as well. Short of that, this is awesome, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.